What's up, everybody? Thanks for coming back. This is episode 3 of I'll Grieve You With This, a podcast about humor and grief and everything in between. It's hosted by me, Micah Walsh, same as always. Same as last week. It's going to be the same next week. I won't be replaced. So this is the third episode, and it's the third interview that I conducted. I'm releasing these in the order in which that they were recorded. And I'm learning that each conversation is uniquely different. And sometimes the discourse goes to areas that I didn't anticipate at all. But it's been good. I think that fun is probably an inaccurate term to describe these talks, but I am starting to enjoy myself more and share some laughs and let go of some stuff that I've been holding on to. So that's been nice for me. I'm really excited to present today's interview. I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago with a very funny comedian, Andy Erikson, and she really opened up. She told me a lot about herself that I really didn't know at all. Her and I have never spoken longer than like a minute before this podcast. So, and we went on for almost 2 hours. So don't worry, I edited it down. But I want to thank her for coming on. I want to thank you guys for listening. I think that's all the further introduction that this requires. Thanks for paying attention. Enjoy my conversation with Andy Erikson. All right.
Got it.
But honestly, we can cut out all this. If you want to do a little preliminary, like, I don't know, sharing of trauma or something. I'll show you my grief if you show me yours.
Well, yeah, what episode is this?
This is the third one. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you've already shared some stuff, I assume, in the first and second. So like I wouldn't want to have to like have you
sure. Just for the sake of you knowing, I can repeat some of the stuff. I shared some of my best anecdotes, but certainly as far as like listing the trauma, I can share with you where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, but it's very much, like I said, the third episode, very much flying by the seat of my pants, figuring it out as I go.
That's great.
So Andy Erikson, thank you for joining us on the show. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, yes. When you mentioned grief online, I said, I have that. I can do this.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing with me because we've been in each other's orbit for like maybe 10 years as both comedians coming out of Minneapolis. But I don't think we've certainly never talked about grief. I don't know if we've had any conversation even longer than 30 seconds.
You know, I usually wait till 45 seconds before I start.
Yeah. And then after the 45-second mark, all the baggage comes out.
All hell breaks loose.
Yeah. So
when did you start? Like,
I came up with the idea 2 or 3 months ago, and I was like, this is great. I can't wait to get started. And I recorded one, and I was like, that was more emotionally exhausting than I had planned for. I think they're very important conversations. But yes, you are person number 3.
Cool.
And I haven't published anything yet. And in fact, I still haven't even picked a title. I'm down to.
Oh, I saw that.
Yes, it's down to Sad Nauseum or I Will Grieve You With This.
I'll grieve you with it. Yeah, I think I voted for I Will Grieve You With This.
I feel
like I had some too, but I don't know if I shared them.
I don't think you did. Give me some.
Well, I can't remember.
Well, that's okay.
What
was interesting is literally everything that I came up with. Well, it's not interesting. Of course, everything that I thought was an original thought already exists as a podcast. And then there's another podcast with that name who's just like, we're going to do it anyway.
Oh yeah, I had the Deal With It podcast. There were so many other Deal With It podcasts, but if you're updating it constantly, or like if yours is active, it rises to the top. And also no one gives a crap. It's like,
yeah, I mean, there's a certain point where it's like everything already exists. But the original idea, I was going to call it Good Grief because that seemed so perfect. And in fact, it was too perfect. Several other people beat me to the punch on that. And then I thought Dead Parent Society would be great. And
good one.
what I found out is there are no original thoughts left for for our brains to discover.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
So it's down to sad nauseum, or I'll grieve you with this.
See, I'm leaning towards I'll grieve you with this only because sad nauseum, no one's gonna know how to spell it. And like I don't know how you're gonna direct people to it.
I have
Like,
noticed that even when people comment like in like, hey, that's a good name, they are misspelling even underneath the post.
But
Yeah,
whatever, people will figure it out.
I think I'm more emotionally attached to I'll grieve you with this because I think it's like a nice thought. But the whatever I could describe as the business part of my brain, which barely exists. I feel like I feel like sad nauseum is more concise and easier to remember. But this is the type of shit I'll probably figure out by the time I interview my fourth guest on this podcast. So
yeah, I'm glad I got in early so I could sway the decision making.
Yeah, honestly, the first 3 episodes are mostly just me asking my guests what I should name. We don't really actually dive into. It's a pretty superficial conversation so far.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so you saw that I posted. I thought it was. I mean, here's how in my own head I am. I thought it was a little bit vulnerable of me just to post that I was creating this, so it was nice to get people responding in a way that made me feel like I'm going in the right direction.
Totally. And I think the only reason I didn't share mine was I was like, no, he's deciding between these ones. I'm not going to add any more chaos.
Sure. Process. Well, that's nice of you.
I'm sure they were all awful, but I think they were all puns. Why can't I remember? Why can't I just rewrite them? My brain is dumb.
I don't know what it is, but everything I wrote was pun based too. And I'm like, surely there's a way to connect with audiences that aren't just puns. But if there is, I haven't yet found it out.
No, I lean into that. Puns are coming back.
Yeah, they're having a real renaissance. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thanks for joining episode 3. It's a little rough around the edges, but I'm sure I'm sorry, you said you were going to start your own podcast. Did you say that?
Yeah, I was trying to start when I have the name and the website bought and no podcast.
What's the name? We're getting the plugs. School party?
Squirrel party.
Oh, I like that. And you bought the domain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like my background's in graphic design. So I just immediately, I have so many domains. I have also I have the domain podventure.com if you want that, a podcast adventure, podventure.
Are you the type of person that speculatively buys domain names to resell them later on in the
I buy them for myself, and I actually had a podcast called Podventure and recorded 1 episode and then never did anything with it.
Wow.
So I don't try to I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it to motivate myself, but then I don't. It doesn't work. It's never worked.
Wow. You know what's funny is I used to own the domain name for MicahWalsh.com, and I was like, I haven't updated this thing in years. I think I'll just spend this money on weed instead, and wait for my career to organically just take off.
It might still be there. I just went to MicahWalsh.com and there's nothing there.
Really? Oh, okay.
You should rebuy it.
I should. Yeah. I fully
buy it right now.
What if that's what you do? And I'm like, oh shit, is Podventure cheaper? Wow, interesting. That's a whole part of my brain I haven't explored, because there's so many podcasts that are already named what I want them. But I wonder if I just if I bought the domain for what people think would be a good idea, maybe I won't have to work at a pizzeria for the rest of my life. Maybe this is my get rich very slow scheme.
Get rich very slow. That's my plan too.
Yeah.
I would stop worrying about getting rich. I'm like, if I have to live, in a hole, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should modify get rich plan into not have to work so hard plan. Riches is not my aim. Okay, so when you saw that I was posting that I'm doing a podcast about grief, you said that resonated with you. Um uh I know just from gleaming what I can from social media that you and I are both members of the Dead Dad Club.
Yeah.
Fucking A. I think you've been in that club a little longer than I.
I mean, perhaps like how old were you when your dad died?
My dad died pretty recently, about 3 years ago.
Okay. And I don't even know how old you are.
I'm 35.
Okay, you're my, God, I thought you were like 25.
Yeah, I get that a lot. I don't know. This is just what I look like.
It's just, okay, yeah, 3 years ago. Okay, yeah, that fucking sucks.
Yeah, well, so we're similar. We probably graduated similar. In any case, so you've lost your father. From what I can glean, it's been a while.
Yeah, when I was 23. Yeah.
Jeez. Do you mind sharing about how that
Oh
went
yeah,
down?
like, well, yeah, for me it's kind of all been tied in with comedy too, because I'd started comedy a few years before, and he died while I was like on stage, but like I didn't know at the time, obviously. So it's just like my head and comedy is like so entwined, like, because
Wow.
that's what I'm doing with my life, and like
Of
it
course.
just it's just, yeah. But my dad died, he just died in a car accident, just it was sudden. So I don't know, some people are like, oh, I'd want to know, like, cancer's awesome because you have time. They're like, no, cancer sucks because you don't. It's like, it all sucks. No one says cancer's awesome. But but the
No.
car accident was yeah. So I was doing a comedy show in Kansas City. It was a satellite for the Laughing Skull Comedy Festival. And I was down there with Eric Allen and Tommy Rhyme and two other Minneapolis
Sure.
comics.
Both
And
very funny guys.
yeah, just great dudes. So we're down there. I'm on the road. It's about 6 hours or maybe 7 or 8 hours from Minneapolis. And I get off stage and I have a great set. Like, I fucking killed it. Like, I had an awesome set. I was like so proud of myself because I just done the Boston Comedy Festival like a week before and didn't do well. So I was like, yeah, I'm back. And I got off stage and I actually got a text from my brother that just said, "Dad's dead."
That's what the text said. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
not even kidding. So I'm just kind of like, okay, my brother's so pissed at my dad. Like, he's so
That's
like,
that's truly how he broke it to you.
yeah, that's how I found out.
So you didn't have any context. You just thought this was a shitty
No.
joke.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me ask you right now: is your brother? Is he an insensitive person, or does he just have
No,
no social cues when it comes to?
here's what was happening. So I found out later he was the only one who knew, and he was drunk, I think, at the time, or got drunk when he found out, and he couldn't get a hold of anyone because he was calling me. And he couldn't get a hold of anyone. So we found out later that he was just like, he needed to tell someone. So, and he was so upset that I know I'm like, my whole chest is just in pain right now thinking about it. But he just couldn't get a hold. My sister was in a movie at the time. I was at a comedy show. My mom was teaching. She was actually teaching a class about grief at the church.
Oh
She was
wow.
teaching actually in the room with a funeral home director, who then we actually went with them. So like for her, and it's like, so he's just the one who found out first because the cops got a hold of him first. So he just needed to get it out there. And so like, I don't even think I got the text right away. I think my phone was on silent. So then I like unlocked my phone and then saw it and was like, what? So then I went out and tried to call him. I couldn't get a hold of him. And my aunt called me and she was just bawling. And she was just like, did you hear? And I was just like, oh, fuck. And so then it just hit me and I just started screaming. I was like out in the hallway and there's a comedy show kind of wrapping up, like finishing
Because
up.
you're still at the club.
Still at the club.
And you had featured or something?
It was a contest. So it was just like 25-minute sets. So like Tommy and Eric had already gone and I went kind of in the middle. And yeah, and I was just out in the entryway. I remember just like punching things and just screaming and just being like, what is happening? And then while I'm screaming and talking to my family, like Eric Allen and Tommy came out, they didn't really know what happened.
Of course.
And then like I told them and they're like, fuck. But then as this is all happening,
You won the comedy contest or something?
No, I didn't win, but someone
Come on back up
club.
stage.
Yeah, that's what happened. Someone from inside the club said, hey, we're announcing, they just called your name. You have to get up there. You're second place.
No.
And so I'm just bawling and I like go on stage and I'm like, I'm second. I'm just crying like on stage. And then everyone just thinks it's because I like lost. They're like,
no. And also, wow.
And then so I get off stage and then I go out into the entryway and then everyone leaving the club hears what happened. And I'm just getting hugs by just random strangers or just hugging me. And I'm just like, it was just fucking surreal. But like within the like half hour of talking to people, I went through the part of the grieving process where I kind of just got, it was fake, but like acceptance, where I was telling people, I was like, I'll be fine. I was like, Batman didn't have parents. I was like, Harry Potter didn't know his parents. Like, I was literally just being like, I'm gonna be fine.
I mean, those were jokes, I assume. Or I mean, yeah, that was.
I don't know why. In my head, I connected. I was reading the Harry Potter books at the time, so I was connecting and actually like Dumbledore. Sorry to spoil it. He had just died in the 6th book while this happened. So I remember thinking like, Dumbledore died, and I was just connecting it. But yeah, I guess it was jokes, but at the same time, I think I was literally being like, if Harry Potter was okay, I'll be okay. Like he didn't even in life, but I'm like, he's a wizard and Batman's a rich superhero. Like it's a little different.
Right.
But yeah,
and I mean, yeah, Harry Potter and Batman, they fucking survived, but I don't think they're the most well-adjusted role models for coping and grieving. You didn't put on a mask and start beating up homeless people in response to this?
Oh God, I mean, I could try. I'm not against.
That's it. Well, that sounds devastating.
Yeah.
And then you're stuck in Kansas City. Is that correct?
So then we need to drive me back. So Eric Allen and Tommy Ryan were going to drive me back. But here's the thing. We drove down that day and Eric Allen he worked nights at the time, like at Target, he worked nights. He hadn't slept all night. And then he drove us to the club. He's the one who's going to drive us back, who hasn't slept in like 24 hours.
This was this was like an 8-hour, this wasn't an overnight thing. This was a go there for the night and turn around.
Yeah, we were going to stay, in a hotel.
Especially maybe in light of the news.
Yeah, so we went back to the hotel and I just stayed in the car and they went and grabbed all my stuff and got it all out and I just stayed in the car. And then we went to the drive and like Eric Allen is like, he didn't even want, I think Tommy had been drinking, so he couldn't drive and Eric had been up all night, but Eric was like, we're getting her home. He was like, I don't give a shit. We're getting her away. Like he was like, she's not waking up in Kansas City, which still was scary because then the entire drive back, it's just like, am I gonna die?
Right. Especially, I mean, given the circumstances of your father's death. Wow. So after your brother sent you this text, then what was obviously it's indescribable, the fallout of the reality fallout. Were you able to get a hold of the rest of your, not that it provided much solace necessarily, but were you able to talk to other people on your way?
Yeah.
That's a long drive, even without immediate death in your psyche. That's a long drive, even on just a normal day.
So like I was able to get a hold of my aunt first, and then eventually my mom, and then I think my sister, my brother, like I can't really remember, but I remember talking to my cousin, and then my phone was dying, and so my phone, I think, died on the drive home. So I was just kind of like, and at the time, I think it was 2010. Like I wasn't used to like my phone being like my life.
Right. So this was pre.
Yeah, like it was still 2010, but like I think I didn't have like an iPhone or anything. I think I had like a BlackBerry of some sort. But so like I couldn't even really do much on it anyway. So I just was in the car listening to the top 40 hits on the radio. So like those songs from that era, I listened to them over and over, and they just kept repeating like the same like 2000 like pop songs. Just to get me home, and they got me home. And I actually didn't even make it to my mom's house. I went to Alex. I was dating him, and now my husband. But yeah, I went to his house, slept there, and then in the next morning they drove me to my mom's, and then I, hugged my mom, and she said, She was like, the first thing she said was like, "You were always your dad's favorite," which I don't know why she said,
Wow.
but I was just like, all right. And then I had just been in Boston and I had like picked up souvenirs for everyone. And like I'm there and we're all grieving. And I'm like handing out souvenirs. I'm just like, here, I got you this shirt and this is what I got for dad.
Yeah.
You know, just it's
Oh,
just
wow. Yeah.
just the war. It's just the it just sucks. It just
Yeah. That's unbelievable. Well, I'm sorry that happened. It feels so empty to even say something like that.
I know.
I'm just like, oh, wow.
But you
I
learn.
actually think I apologized to my previous two guests, which I probably should have. But it's kind of incomprehensible. What's weird about, so you were 23, you said?
Yeah.
Did you after, I mean, when all was said and done with my dad dying, I was like, you know, you have to go back to work. Like the week later, you have to resume some sort of semblance of normalcy. Yeah, wow. So my dad died of cancer, but it was like we had like 7 years to deal with it. So I it's, you know, apples and oranges. It's kind of I don't know who benefits from the exercise of comparing grief, but but I will say I empathize very hard with your situation. I think I had a little bit of an advantage being able to process. You're laughing, but I'm actually trying to be sincere.
I don't even know. I feel like the grief then you had was, I mean, obviously intense for 7 years, and like mine's intense too, but it's different. It's just different.
Yours is more like ripping the Band-Aid off, where mine is more like a scar tissue that I'm sort of picking at.
And I don't even, and maybe you've already talked about this in other episodes, but like, which would you prefer to go? Would you want to know and have time and be kind of sick or whatever, or would you rather just happen fast?
I think my way was more of the fortunate way to go. The last guy I interviewed, nice guy, Kurt Ryan.
Nice.
His father had a heart attack on a bus, and he got off the bus and died on a bench. And I said, that sounds worse than me having to go to hospice. You know what I mean? Like I was able to like literally crack jokes with my dad, whereas like
that's true. You kind of get to talk to him
a little bit of gallows humor type stuff.
That's what's great is like comedy really does, like it pulled me through, helped me get through it, and we were making jokes like pretty right away. Sure. Like it didn't take long in our family to be making jokes.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what it is, but we laughed a lot the day of my dad's funeral. And I don't know what we were talking about at all. You know what I mean? Like I have no memory of that, but I have pictures of us like doubling over with belly laughs. And I mean, that has to be like almost an inverse of guttural crying, you know, because it comes from the same part of my belly when I'm just like, oh, I think, you know, I gave a little bit of a speech in my dad's wake type thing. And that was the first type of joke I pretended to point out where the bathrooms were, like it was a comedy show or something. I might have said like tip your wait stat or something so self-serving and not at all like not at all moving the eulogy forward.
My God, I love it.
I mean, what else do you do? So let me ask you this. Your comedy is very character based and it's very one-linery. Is that an apt description?
Yeah, and it used to be, but then maybe this is where you're going, is it did shift into telling more stories and talking about my dad on stage.
Okay, sure. So did you feel a need to write jokes about it, or
for me it was still, comedy had always been an escape from the shit I was dealing with in my life, so I didn't want to pull that into the one place where I kind of felt like I could just be happy. silly. So I resisted it, and I like, there was all this pressure to like be real on stage and be vulnerable. And I kept hearing like, that's what real comedy is. That's, you know, and I get it. I do think that's a valuable form of comedy, but I just wasn't there. And I just didn't,
Sure.
I didn't want to, and I just couldn't, it just didn't make sense to me. But then
Well,
I did
also,
myself.
like I said, you're very funny, one-liners and sort of nonsensical
Yeah.
absurdisms.
It's fun.
It would be the equivalent of me seeing like Mitch Hedberg do a bit about his mom dying, or
Yeah.
like Neil Hamburger, and I'm like, this seems like a departure from the previous material.
I know, it's so funny. It's so, yeah. Cause yeah, and I did ease into it because, and in my set too, I start with the one-liners, then they slowly get longer, and I talk about like my health and stuff, which I never used to really talk about that either. And then I
Right.
go into that. And then I had like a silly story about when I was in the hospital. It was around Christmas time. I just had heart surgery, and I was with my dad in the hospital, and they came in, they're like, all right, one of the nurses came in, all right, we have two options. Guests who can visit your daughter. Would you like Santa to come in? We can have Santa come visit her. Or would you like Jason Fisk, a lineman on the Minnesota Vikings, or a defensive end on the Minnesota Vikings? So like, I picked Jason Fisk because I knew it would make my dad so happy, and it totally did. He was so happy. He was taking pictures and getting autographs, and like, he was over the moon. And so I was telling that story on stage at ACME, and it was the first time I'd headlined at ACME. And as I was telling that story, like, I started to cry on stage, and I couldn't get through the joke.
Oh wow.
On stage, yeah. And I'm just like,
Was that the first time you
oh.
told the joke?
I told it before, but not at like, it was my home club, and I just felt like I was connecting with the audience, and it was still a pretty new joke though, actually. But as I was like, I couldn't get through it, and I just cried, and I just kind of felt like I can't even get through this joke, like whatever. I just felt like, not like a failure, but I was like, God, like, I get my shit together. But then someone in the back of the comedy club shouted like, your dad's proud of you.
Did that help? Because I think in my instance, that would make me weep so much more.
Right.
Like, for real, I would be like, I thought I was about to regain my composure. You just sent another like 30 seconds of just so like, I know he's proud of me because we had a great relationship.
That's so true. That's so true. Like, it made me laugh. And then the audience all started clapping. They're like, he's proud. And I made the joke like, that's the best heckle I've ever had. And
wow, like, that is pretty. Yeah.
Yeah. And it got me through the set. And then like, so for me, it was like, I 100% knew my dad was proud of me, but he wasn't the type of person to just like say it. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, I could totally see him like nudging some guy to be like, hey, tell her for me. You do it. That's sweet. So yeah, so then that story right there that I just told too, like, I've told that story in my act too, just being like sharing, so that way it's kind of, you can detach yourself from it instead of, but yeah, otherwise it's become part of like who I am, like, and you can probably attest to this too, like, I felt like my identity was the girl who didn't have a dad. Like, the dead dad part felt like that was me. That's all I felt for a very long time.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it changes who you are, truly. I mean, yeah. I've noticed in my previous edits, I'm like, I'm so glad I've learned how to edit, because there's so many and ums, and I go right on. And yeah, that's true. Like, could I be more present? I'm like, I don't have to be present. I can delete all these ums and uhs.
Hell yeah. No, I wish I could do that on stage. Just edit.
Yeah, for real, edit and post.
Oh my gosh.
Teacher. So you sort of touched on it, but you and your father had a good relationship, I would imagine, even if he was maybe a little Minnesotan in doling out his verbal.
Yeah, he was a good dad. He was like pretty strict and like really hard on us. And there were definitely times where I was kind of like afraid of him, but only because he could just, I don't know, he's always had to be right. And he was very smart and kind of intimidating that way, and just kind of really good at everything. And as we were kids, yeah, he was really strict, and like I would get in trouble for getting up in the middle of the night to ask for water and stuff like that. But he grew out of that and grew as a person. He actually like read a book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and that like helped change.
And it's all small stuff.
Yeah.
Parenthetical. Yeah, I've seen that book in
Yeah,
Goodwill
really?
and Savers.
I want to find that book and be like,
Yeah, no, I've seen that in many like Salvation Army bookshelves and stuff. But if I do see one, I'll pick it up for you.
Yeah.
That was a turning point for him. That book,
Yeah.
he credits it.
He said it because that's how he was. He's very logical. So I think having some methods to deal with his anger, actually, like he was able to apply them.
Sure.
And he like, and near the end of his life, he was living his life. He was just having fun, and like he would go to Vegas all the time. He played poker, he golfed. He went from working 8 hours a day to just 4 hours a day, and him and his work partner would switch off. And so he just had more time. Yeah. And so he lived he saved up, like he's really good at saving money, but he just would still like even when he went to Vegas, it was a super cheap trip. And then he started playing poker with $50 and then built that up into like 10,000, and then entered the World Series of Poker. And the year he died, he made it into the money in the World Series of Poker. Like he was just really good at everything he did. And I'm like, if he was still alive, I know he'd be pursuing. I could totally see him at a final table. And it just sucks, just all like the stuff he's missing out on. It's like,
absolutely.
I live in LA, and I'm back in Minnesota now, but I was like, God, I could just be going to Vegas and just hanging out with my dad. It's like, I never really got the like adult life with him. Like, you know, I was 23, but I'd just gotten out of college. So I wasn't even really seeing him that often, you know, in the last few years of his life, because I was at college.
Sure.
But he would still send me emails and fax, like send me like a fax. He'd fax it to my mom, and then she would put it in an envelope and mail me things he got on the internet, just like things to read about science or news.
Tell me about his sense of humor. Did
he loved impressions.
Okay.
And he would do like just random Joe Dirt impressions. He did
okay.
Like Napoleon Dynamite.
Wow. And then it's a real timestamp on your dad's references.
It goes into the 2010s, like, or into 2010. He didn't really matter what it was. Pee-wee Herman. He loved Pee-wee Herman. But yeah, he loved being funny and being silly. He would pretend to hit us when we were in public, and we would like pretend to fall and get hurt. Yeah. He'd be like, he's put his hand up, like, I'm gonna, and then we but yeah, he even tried stand-up. So like, yeah.
In Minneapolis?
Yes. So I started in 2007, and I remember after he died, I was like, can someone help me find his set at ACME, because they taped them all.
No,
and they went back and they found his set.
ACME?
He did ACME, and he did it within a month of me starting. Like it was right away. Like I started in August, his set was in like September or October.
You guys, you and your father both had your first comedy sets within months of each other? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. He just went with me. He didn't even tell me he was going to sign up. He just signed up, and his name is Joe Erikson. He signed it up as Joe Rock. So he's one of those guys where people are like, oh God, he's such an embarrassment. And then he went on stage and he had an Australian accent.
No, he didn't. For the entire set?
Just until he realized it wasn't working. And then
did he have a joke about abandoning the accent, or did he just was like, all right, well, anyway, Facebook's weird. He just starts talking in his Minnesota accent.
Yeah.
How about
yeah, exactly. He told jokes about Iowa, not liking Iowa, and then he ended.
Is that where he's from?
No, but he has family in Iowa, so he just kind of made fun of Iowa. Okay. Which, whatever, that's fine. But then he closed on a joke, because my grandma lived with us. He closed on a joke about like my grandma getting a plunger stuck in her vagina, and then him having to like help her. I'm like, that did not happen.
I hope not.
Maybe it did.
No, well, interesting.
Yeah, so it
That's
was
so
so
funny. I wish I could have seen my father's fucking ACME
no.
performance.
And I feel like
Did he run the light? I have to know.
he did. He didn't know. He didn't see
Touch
it.
mic?
Yeah, yeah. He couldn't see it. They said, and everyone, that was Joe Rock.
Yes. And
And
up
so
next is Andy Erikson.
right. So then I found this video of it and I didn't show my family because it's so embarrassing. I just didn't even, I was like, they would be so sad to see how bad he did.
Interesting.
So
Wow.
I eventually did. Oh, hold on.
Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, do your thing.
Um, I had the door open that whole time.
Hey, actually, yo, listen. I'm gonna stop this and then re-invite you to the group just so we have what we have saved so
Okay,
far.
cool. Good call.
Give me 1 second. I think my Zoom group's like cut off after 40 minutes. So
Oh, good. Well, good to know. I think
you're
with
here
this-
for the learning process of this.
Yeah. This is how you do it. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so before this, we were talking about your your father performed at ACME. Was it
Yes.
were you on the same open mic?
Yes, I was on later that night.
Did you see him or did you only hear about it? Because a lot of us don't watch open mics that we're on. And I think you have a delay. Hold up.
No, at the time, like when I first started, hello. Is there still a delay?
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
no.
you're back now.
Oh, I'm back. Okay. So you can lead into it again if you want.
Wow, you're so professional. Yeah. What did I even ask? So you and your father performed at the same open mic as you. Did you watch his set or did you find out about it afterwards? Because you and I know that we don't necessarily watch everyone on an open mic.
No, of course. Open mic, no.
And especially since he signed up as Joe Rock.
So yeah, and actually this at the time, I was like a total loser. No,
come on.
Loser. But I sat in the audience and watched sets for at least the first year. And I sat and I would like go up and I'd be one of the ones because like also people weren't friendly to me for a while. It took me a while to make friends.
Get that clout.
Yeah. But yeah, so I was in the room. He was sitting next to me. And I remember there was a guy next to us who was just like laughing at everything and having a good time. But I think my dad went up like, I don't know, like third or fourth. So he walks up there and I'm watching him go up there and he does his jokes. And I'm just kind of like, oh gosh, please do good. And then he did bad. And afterwards he knew he
the thing about comedy is the appraisal is immediate. Yeah. You don't go, oh well, I guess I'll wait till the critics write in a week. It's like, oh, immediately
right away. So then I was like trying to cheer him up. I was like, well, that guy was laughing at you, and he was like, he was laughing at everyone.
Oh wow. Wait, let me ask you, did you guys ride to the mic together?
Yep. I mean, at the time I wasn't driving, so he
didn't tell you that he was signing up, or he did?
No,
and you were just like, I'm gonna pretend.
Not till he got there.
Fucking shit. And you had already done comedy a handful of times.
Yeah, for a few weeks. And then he
was just like, if she can do it, I can do it. Plus, I already have to fucking hang out in the parking lot because I'm her ride.
You totally get it. So he's not like, oh yeah, this is easy. So, and he wanted to try it. So he spent time writing jokes and like really got into it.
I love that.
But he, even after that set, he only did it a couple more times after that set. But like he did another time at Grumpy's.
No, I was literally going to ask if he did Grumpy's.
Yeah,
Grumpy's is the first place I ever did stand up.
Yeah, and he didn't do good, and they called him out because he had some street jokes, and so they were calling him out, and he's like, "Okay, I need to do yeah, no, you
can't. I mean, Grumpy's is for the uninitiated, which is everyone who hasn't fucking done comedy in Minneapolis. Grumpy's is like ground zero of like where jokes die in Minneapolis, and that it. Just out of serendipity, it happened to be the first place I ever performed because I looked up like open mics Minneapolis. Grumpy's was the closest one to my house. And I performed there and people are like, "Ooh, why did you start there? What what balls?" And I'm like, do you think I had any inclination of which rooms were better or worse? Like,
of course not.
I think I was gonna pride myself in starting at like the hardest
Honestly, I think that's better than me going to Acme and that being my first club, because I didn't know of any clubs either. I think that's nuts. I tell people don't go to Acme until you've done.
Sure. Acme will certainly inflate your sense of how funny you are. So what I did in Minneapolis, I literally did Grumpy's for 8 weeks in a row. It was the only mic I did. And then I did Acme Monday night. And I was like, oh my God, people are laughing at my jokes. This is fucking crazy. Like, what? This is what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
So honestly, and it's probably a pretty trivial parallel metaphor I'm going to make, allegory. Neither of those words are what I'm looking for, but kind of how like your dad died without any warning, and my dad sort of had like 7 years of setup. You started at Acme, which is like, there's easily at the open mic on Mondays, what, 150, 200 people?
300 up to.
Yeah. Whereas I started in the cancer ward. You know, I started in hospice and I worked my way back to the fucking maternity ward.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So your father got to see you do stand-up. That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
He saw you a number of times, I would imagine.
Yeah. And so he saw me, and what was great about him doing stand-up, as mortifying as it was that after he'd done it a few times, because he thought it was stupid that I was doing comedy. Not stupid, but he was like, really, this is what you want to do with your life?
And that's why do you think that's why would he do it then? Just to prove to you that it's that anyone can do it, or what?
Yeah, I think he was like, well, maybe it'd be like a good hobby, but not like a job.
Sure.
But he didn't like that was going to be my new like career choice. But he tried it, but was nice afterwards. He came and he admitted to me, and he rarely would admit something like this, but he was like, you're good at this. He's like, now that I've tried it, I can tell it's hard. You know for sure that it was hard. And he's like, okay.
He's like, before this, I didn't respect you, but now that I've bombed at Acme as Joe Rock. Did any of his jokes have reference to his last name being Rock, or he just wanted to have a little bit of an anonymity?
No, I don't even think it was anonymity. He just thought it was funny. He was a dork. But I will say, so he did bomb there, and he bombed at Willie's, and he was kind of like, I'm done, whatever, I'm done.
He bombed at Grumpy's because he's a joke thief, apparently.
Grumpy's, yeah. And so he bombed at Grumpy's. And so like a couple months later, I think I was headlining a show, or like not headlining, but I was like I think I was hosting my own show actually at the Corner Bar, and there was a snowstorm. And so, but a bunch of my friends and family had come. So I had a bunch of friends and family there. And so they wanted to see a show, but a bunch of the comics couldn't make it. So it was just like me. And then like my dad did a set at that night, and he killed it. No. He was just off the cuff, making jokes, being silly. And it was just so fun and funny. And after that, he was like, okay, I can be done. Like I can retire on top. But it was just like,
sure.
Yeah. So it's like he had his like, you know, his
That's
comeback.
Good. That's great that he got to experience
what
you and I experience every time we step on stage. Just, you know, unqualified applause.
Yeah. So he told, like, I'd been doing comedy. So I was in college at the time when I started when I was 20. And he said that they would, like, my mom was giving me $200 a month to help keep me afloat while I was working and stuff like that. And but he says, we're cutting you off when you're 25. We're not giving you $200.
Sure.
So he's like, he said,
and 200 is such a modest allowance. And you're like, we're giving you $50 a week. What does that break down to? Like $6.50 a day? We're paying you 1 hour of minimum wage just to exist per day.
Honestly.
And then you're cut off.
Yeah, no more $200 a month.
Okay. So they were like sort of begrudgingly somewhat sponsoring your comedy aspirations in this respect.
Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like, because like I worked at Walmart, and I worked at a concession stand, and I did babysitting and graphic design. Like I was still kind of just freelancing, like barely getting by. But then they kind of told me, like, my dad was like, by the time you get to 25, like you need to, if you haven't like,
I'm sorry, but 25, that's such a crazy age to
it's
be
insane.
like, hey, you have to have it figured out by now.
25.
I'm like, what the fuck? I turned 36, in October, and I'm like, I'm not even sure if I have insurance. You know what I mean? Like when I refill my prescriptions, I'm like, you don't have the old stuff, the information from the last time I came here? Oh, I guess I'll be selling plasma to fucking buy antidepressants.
30s have 100% felt like redoing my 20s. Like right. I still feel like a child, 100%.
Minus the fucking parents' health insurance, I guess, and the $200 allowance, of course. I assume was cut off.
Yes, so my dad's like, you have to make it before you're 25. But then when he died, I was kind of like, oh, I guess it doesn't matter anymore. I can take as long as I want.
Sure.
He's not gonna stop.
Yeah. You moved the goalposts.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah, it was just a weird fucking time. I remember the last conversation I had with him too. I was on the phone, and I was at the Boston Comedy Festival, and I had to go first. I drew first. And tough. I was just like, well, I'm going to lose. I spent all this money to get here. So like I called my dad, and I was so upset. And I remember him texting, do you want me to talk to someone? Like, do you want me to talk to a manager? Like,
what did he think that he would have done?
And then
like,
he was
listen.
Making a joke. But yeah, he would have been like, all right, my daughter can't go first. You need to give her a sweet spot, like maybe fourth. But like,
first is a death sentence, honestly.
I know.
In anything.
I was so upset because I was like, I thought I had a really good chance. Like I had like with my one-liners and stuff like that, and the audience was hot, but like I knew they take time to warm up, and I'd seen it so many times. Like I was like,
they always take time to warm up.
Yeah.
Even the funniest people ever. They go on, and they're like, all right, well, I'm still like, settling into my seat.
Exactly. People getting their drinks. So yeah, but then my mom told me that like he laughed after he said that text, and they were just like, oh yeah, he thought that was so funny that he was like, want me to talk to someone. And then the last like text I sent him, I'd like gone to visit his mom and dad, and he was just so happy because I took a picture with them. Like I stopped at their apartment, and he was like, oh, so like I'd sent him, like he was like, you're a good daughter. So like I had that. That. So it was great that like we ended on like good terms, and like things were, it wasn't.
Well, it sounds like he cared about you deeply.
Yeah.
And the feeling was mutual.
Yeah.
Even if he may have been a little Midwestern in his ability to express, and this is me projecting.
Totally. I connect with that.
He I wonder if him doing stand-up was a sort of a way to try to be like, I wonder this thing my daughter's up to. I wonder what that's about. Maybe this, or because I kind of have to wonder, was he trying to outshine you, or was he just like, comedy? I never even thought about it until my daughter introduced me to the idea that you can do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think he wanted to try it because he liked, I don't know, he probably thought.
But he must have had a good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Or at least thought. There's some people that are completely humorless. There's some people that are funny. And then there's some people that like think they have a sense of humor and they enjoy jokes. And, it's somewhere in between the two.
He just liked attention, I think.
Don't we fucking all?
Yeah. But I think I think he was inspired by me. He wouldn't have done it otherwise.
Sure.
And I thought that was cool. And everyone who says it thinks it's so cool. Like, oh, your dad, but like how awful would it have been if he like kept doing comedy? We were both doing comedy all the time.
Oh my God, that would have been the worst thing ever. You would have had to have started a podcast, not out of just fucking, just out of inevitability. You'd have been like, it's the mother-daughter or the father. I don't know. I didn't mean to assume your dad's gender like that.
My dad or my mom, Joe. I guess that is, my mom's name is Joey, and his name is Joel. Joey, Joel, and Jolene.
What was your father's full name?
Joel Henry Erikson.
Joel Henry Erikson, rest in peace.
And
Good man.
Is rest in R.I.P. But when his mom went to name him, so they didn't do it at like right when you were born. You had to like go to like a courthouse and fill out like a birth certificate.
Sure.
She was drunk at the time, so she wrote the name in the wrong order. It was supposed to be Henry Joel Erikson. And
your mother, who had presumably just given birth to your father, was drunk at the time she went to the courthouse.
Yeah,
so that was a long 9 months she'd been waiting.
Yes.
Or maybe she wasn't waiting. Maybe it was.
I don't know if she drank it, but I bet she did.
Okay.
But yeah. So my dad.
I'm sorry, and she's misspelled his name. I was so happy about my own little fucking joke I could make that I sort of stepped on what you were telling me.
No, I think that's hilarious. So his name was supposed to be Henry Joel Erikson, and said she got them out of order, so it was Joel Henry, and there was already a child in the family named Joel Henry Erikson, so there were two. One of his cousins.
How shallow is your guys' fucking pool of potential names for kids? You're like, hey, this one. Well, what if we put the two names back in and draw them in a different order?
I know. Henry, I don't know. And that's the thing. Like, I never understood naming people after someone in the family, because I think Henry was like his grandpa or something.
It's a very British thing. I just recently found out to name your child after your parent is a very British thing, for the grandchild and the grandparent to have the same name.
Yeah. I always thought it was weird, but then now it's like, if I have a kid, it's like, I totally want my dad's name to be a part of it, but I don't know if I would go first name, but I would go somewhere.
I'm sorry, you have a kid?
No, if I had one.
Oh, I was about to say, like, yo, this pre-interview, we didn't really touch on anything. And also the pre-interview didn't really happen. But I was I'm pretty sure, even though we don't know each other that well, I'm like, I don't think Andy has a kid.
Child.
So if you do have a kid, you think that you will designate middle name or something?
Yeah.
Sure.
Actually, you were thinking of the name Hendrix for like Henry for the first name. I like the name, but I don't know why we're thinking of names. I have a heart condition. I can't have children.
Oh yeah. So is that a thing? Do you want to talk about your health?
I mean, how much time we got?
I don't know. I can edit this down. The whole thing's gonna be 12 minutes. You're gonna be like, wow, I shared so much. I'll be like, this is mostly me.
There you go. This is all we can fit in.
Slam dunking on your dad.
Just quick little chips. My dad's dead. I'm sad.
You have Marfan syndrome?
Yeah, you did.
Well, no, we've been in each other's orbit for a while.
Health orbit, yeah.
And you did your research. You looked up MicahWalsh.com and saw that it was still available. All right, so it's good on both of us. So does that affect your ability to have kids, or maybe just your mentality about the idea of bringing children into the future?
I mean, all of it, but this is something I haven't talked about on stage, but like that, that you deal with, that you kind of, it's another form of grief, because I found out that having kids could kill me, because I have a weak heart, and they just said the whole process, like I'd be at huge risk, and my heart, I have so many heart issues that they told me not to. But I'd been told that if I had kids before I was 30, that I'd be fine. But like the doctor's like, no, I don't know who told you that. They're insane. So then
that's certainly a form of grief. So
then I grieved the fact that like, oh, I can't have kids, and like it was really hard. I dealt with it.
Was that a thing that you always thought was part of your plan?
Oh yeah, I love making forts and
you are kind of a child at heart, are you not?
Yes, making cakes and making a mess and playing dress up and like doing all that stuff was such a huge part of my life. Like I thought I was gonna have kids, like for sure. But it's like, because I can't,
your body cannot handle that.
No.
So Marfan, I'm sorry. I know very little about it. It affects your heart and obviously your ability to have children. And it's like more like longer limb type stuff.
Yeah, I got long fingers. It makes you taller, typically taller. It's a connective tissue disorder. So the stuff that holds you together is just weaker. So my eyes are weaker, my heart, my spine.
And how does that manifest in your daily life?
It's mostly just managing the heart, and then just having horrible eyesight, just like really bad eyesight. So it's like not a good driver.
Do you have I mean, you must have contacts, or do you have some sort of
Yes.
special type?
I'm wearing contacts, and actually I've had like my lenses just suddenly dislocate where then I just like went blind. Um, and I was like freaking out. We went to the hospital and then they took the lenses out. And actually now I see like close to 2020 with contacts, when they told me I'd never see better than 2050. So it was like, sweet, like,
Oh wow.
take the lenses out. Like, why didn't anyone tell me this? Like, I'll wear
Yeah. It's kind of scary how little we know about our own how little humans know about our own health.
how it
Oh,
works
shit.
for our body. That's what really frustrates me, is how so many people don't realize how lucky they are to have like a healthy body.
For fucking real.
It's
I mean,
like,
and I did you hear how hard I just amen you? And I was literally thinking about the time I tore a ligament in my ankle skateboarding like 12 months ago.
Oh,
And I'm like, nobody knows. I haven't been able to fucking even attempt a kickflip. This is the cross that I carry. But it is true. You're just like, oh, well, if I had no idea how fragile my body,
how close everything can change. And it's like, you know, you kind of feel like, oh, no one else understands this, but there are so many people dealing with like invisible illnesses and even like obviously depression and anxiety. It's
no,
like,
but Marfan is like not exactly one that's on the forefront of most people's consciousness.
No, it's 1 in 5,000 people have it, but 1 in 10,000 have been diagnosed. So there's 1 in 10,000 people who have it right now who don't know that they have it. So that's part of like getting the awareness.
Okay, sure.
Once you get diagnosed, you can take medications that can prolong your life. But without it, you're like a ticking time bomb. Like your hearts are so weak that just pumping blood is damaging your heart every time your heart beats. But you can get on medication that takes the pressure off and can completely change your life.
Sure.
So I do some stuff for awareness and stuff like that.
I imagine that must make you a little more conscious of your own impending mortality. I mean, we all of our mortality is impending.
It's true.
Especially once you lose a parent, you sort of go, well, I have a limited amount of time on this.
I've normalized it, and I've gotten to the point where I'm not as scared of it. Like I still have like panic attacks and stuff, but actually in 2020, June of 2020, I actually had two the doctors call them heart events, but basically a heart attack.
Oh, yeah. Heart attack.
Where I actually technically like coded. And luckily I was at the hospital already for fainting. So they were keeping an eye on me. But while I was there, they took me off all my medication because that's what they do. But I think being taken off my medication made my heart freak out. And so I had to be like, I remember standing up to go to the bathroom, came back, laid down, and then I don't remember anything. And then they had to like bring in the machine that like put, does the oxygen and stuff. There's actually a machine, which is pretty cool. So people don't even have to do it. They just put a machine on you and then it does it.
Huh.
Yeah, cool.
And I'm just saying, like, how few people will know that, because most people will not be in a situation where they're like, oh, cool, it's a robot instead of a human pressing their hands against my chest to. Okay, I'm sorry. Did you say that happened in the last year?
That was in June of 2020, so like almost 2 years ago.
Jeez.
Yeah, and it was during the pandemic.
Of course. So was Alex, your husband, was he able to, has that been an issue, him coming into the hospital?
Yeah, when I was there, I couldn't have any visitors, so I was by myself.
Wow.
In the hospital. Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Weird. And then I was in there, I fainted, they brought me there. They all were just like kind of hanging out outside. I was in there by myself for a few days, and then I had the heart events. And then I woke up in the ICU, and they told my husband that he would try, like every day he would go in and be like, can I see her today? And they'd say, nope, the only way you can see her is if we don't think she's going to make it. You can go in to say goodbye. And then the day I was in the ICU, he went in to ask if he could see me, and they said yes. And he just broke down in tears because
holy shit, because the implication was that you were
the only reason they would let me see me is
this was COVID related.
No, I just had my heart.
I meant the reason that he wasn't allowed to come in.
Oh yeah.
COVID protocol.
That's
So
COVID
insane.
protocol. Yeah.
That's so insane.
Yeah.
That must have been very isolating for you. I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
Yeah, it was nuts. Like, and I spent lots of time in hospitals. It's so much worse if you don't have a family member there.
I imagine it would take a toll on your fucking mental health.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
but it was nice. Like so then my mom, they let my mom into and him, and they didn't know if I was gonna have brain activity. They didn't know because they didn't really even know how long.
I'm sorry, just to sort of readdress. So you fainted, you went to a hospital, and then you had a heart activity event.
Yes.
And your husband was unable to fucking see you.
Yeah,
and you were just in a room in the first surge of what will be many, we've found out, of COVID variants.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where was your brain at that point? What were you doing? Just like,
I mean, before I had what it wasn't really a heart attack, but it was that my heart was beating so fast that no blood was pumping. It's called torsades. So it was just beating so fast that like no blood was going anywhere. So blood wasn't getting to the brain. So then they had to like resuscitate me. And then they had to do it again because it happened again. And I've read like only 40% of people who they do CPR on survive. Like most people don't. I mean, I was younger, and like my heart was still working, and they got to me quick. I was like, thank God I was there.
I hope you didn't read that on like WebMD, right?
I probably did.
Because honestly, if there's ever a place for confirmation of your worst fears, it's WebMD. Like you go, hey, my fucking thumb hurts. You look it up, and they're like, you have 36 hours to live. Like, all right.
Yeah, like as I'm having a heart attack, am I gonna die? Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I woke up in the ICU, and then they were there. My mom and husband were in there with me, and then like they started asking me questions, but like because they didn't know how I'd be, and I was I started doing sign language because I couldn't talk. I had a ventilator in. Like,
do you know sign language?
I guess so. Like I learned it when I was younger, but like it came back.
What do you mean you learned it when you were younger? What do you mean? I guess so. That's not a thing. I'm sorry. There's follow-up questions for that one. You're like, yeah, I guess so. You know, you pick up a little bit of sign language when you're in the land of. There's no place you go and you're like, yeah, I just picked up a little. You know, when I was
in heaven, I learned it in heaven while I was with God. He's like, here's some. He just did some hand stuff.
So you came back thinking that you knew sign language. Is that what you're saying?
So I like doing my own. But no,
You're like, I need a suggestion from the. You came back doing improv.
Yeah. But yeah. So I signed like water or something. Like I signed. So they were like, okay, she's not brain dead. She knows sign language. She's communicating. They're like, this is a good sign. And then when they took the ventilator out, I think like the first thing they kept saying like, this is such a good hospital, you're in good hands. And I was like, they don't even have HBO. I just was
like, they don't even have curb.
Yeah, it's like really this is nice. Look how small their TV is. So yeah, so like I had my sense of humor right away. So they're like, oh, and you know what? Here, actually, I do know why I knew sign language, and it ties back in with my dad. My dad was deaf in one ear, and he was always afraid he could lose his hearing in his other ear. So he learned some sign language, and we were growing up. He taught us
interesting. He was born. He was born like that.
No, he got thrown into a pool head first and hit his head on the bottom of the pool, and then just went deaf in that ear. Yeah, when he was like a teenager. Yeah,
I've never heard of that.
I don't think that happens very often. But don't ever dive into a pool head first. He was thrown though.
Wow.
But yeah, so he taught me sign language, so I knew a little bit and I could communicate. Yeah, and then they sent my husband and mom out. And then I was just kind of there. But what was like, I see like nurses are so awesome. Like they were taking such good care of me. And like,
yeah,
like one of them even ran up and wanted to come and see me because she was in the room I had been in, and she wanted to know how I was. And like, they were working so hard. They were dealing with COVID and all this.
Yeah, that's great.
That's why I got pissed at people who like weren't wearing masks and stuff like that. Cause it was like, I was using one of the ventilators that like, what if there hadn't been one?
Right.
Yeah. So it's like, and that was in the height of it. Like, luckily there was, but there were hospitals where they didn't have ventilators. And I was just someone who just happened to have an unrelated health issue, and that's still happening. And it's funny too, because I make about, I'm like, it came back to bite me because like I made jokes about ventilators. Like I made one out of Legos and I was just like, here's a ventilator. I'm making ventilators.
Yeah.
Oh God, I shouldn't have mocked.
Oh, you made a COVID joke before? You made like a ventilator joke pre your hospitalization? Yeah.
And then after,
at least it wasn't like your last like pinned tweet. Because anytime anytime I post something flippant, I'm like, I hope I don't die when I get on this plane. Like I'm about to take a plane. I only really consider my mortality super in a focused way when I'm like on an airplane. I'm like,
yeah, it feels real.
The last fucking thing I posted about whatever bullshit I saw. I hope
go to your Twitter right now and let's see what your last tweet would be.
Oh God, how dare you?
Sorry.
It's gonna be something like fucking.
Is it Micah Walsh? Twitter.
Yeah.
It says account suspended.
Oh yeah. Well, my last tweet was pretty scandalous. No, Micah underscore or maybe.
That's hilarious.
Let's get our plugs in while we're here.
Great, like right here, right in the middle of it. Micah underscore. Well, okay, yeah, because I love that.
Okay, so my last one is literally just a reference to fucking Sublime lyrics, and I'm like, ugh, I wish I don't know, some dumb shit. You're like, shit, if I die, the last thing people will be like, oh, he was making, or the picture of Elon Musk and all his friends looking down, and I captioned it, when you and your boys compared dicks. I think it's funny, and I think the image matches the caption. But if I die later tonight, I don't want people to be like,
that's his last
I remember him. Oh,
no,
yeah, that's kind of funny. Elon Musk. Yeah.
People go to Twitter. Yeah, if the listeners want to go to twitter.com/Andy Erikson to read my last tweet before I die.
Yeah, of course.
That's like, you should do that on every episode. This is a good.
I should condition every tweet that I ever post with parenthetical. If I die, fucking somebody else make this not the thing that people remember about me. I'm just like complaining about something dumb and topical, like a new Netflix show. And I go, oh, well, I died.
Okay. I have a bunch of stupid stuff, but like, yeah, I have
let me find you actually. Let me see.
Yeah.
If you died. And let's explore this more. No, but is this the part we find out that neither of us follow each other? No, I follow you. Okay. So if you died, the last thing would be like, I like that joke. The joke about making the bed. I won't spoil it here, but yeah. Hey, look her up, audience members at home.
I got some good dead tweets. Good tweets. Before I die, take a look.
Yeah. Let me ask you, just to bring it back to the grief thing, where was your father buried? Is he cremated? Is there a place where you ever go to visit? Because my dad doesn't have a gravestone and we cremated him. So he kind of only exists in my memory.
Oh, so you don't have like a place. Yeah. I mean, places are cool. I mean, my husband's dad recently died and we put like a cross on the road where he died in a 4-wheeler accident. And that, sorry to completely change the subject, but then just reliving all of it with my husband has just been fucking a nightmare.
I didn't realize that that's how Alex's father died.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, people don't often share like how someone dies.
Of course.
I have to just guess, which is kind of a funny thing too. Just like,
I've touched on it before, but me, when I'm trying to book people for this, I truly have to kind of speculate on other people's.
Yes.
It feels like very voyeuristic, where I go, oh, that person posted a tribute on Facebook, I think a year ago. maybe they'd be good. And I'll put them into my little
Yeah,
my
my Rolodex.
Rolodex. Yeah.
Super weird.
Um,
Dead dad Rolodex. Dead mom Rolodex.
yeah, it really
No.
is. It truly feels like I'm doing like, I don't know. I feel like I'm a private investigator for trauma that I don't necessarily have any business investigating. Um uh
You're just
but
using this.
Alex is a great guy. I know him,
Oh yeah, he likes you too.
um well, maybe I'll have him on to discuss. So
Yeah.
I don't need to further extrapolate on it, but man, that must have really brought back a lot of your own.
Yeah, I think just the moment of finding out, he found out in a phone call and I was right next to him, just like the whole process of having it happen again is just like, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I like literally, I don't think I can deal with anyone else dying. It's
So
so painful.
did you shut down? Did your body shut down?
Yeah,
I
like
mean,
I my whole body just felt and I just tensed up and then like my heart, my chest hurt so bad that I was just also worried about my own health.
no
So I was
shit.
kind of like,
Like honestly,
I was, but also not
that's a
trying to
very
like,
relevant concern.
yeah, yeah, which is weird. So then not trying to like worry Alex too, to have him after about anything else. But what's interesting is like being on the other side of it, even though like I knew this man and I loved him, he wasn't my dad. So it's still so different. I went into just like, superhero mode where you're just like, I'm going to help. So
Sure.
you get like this extra energy where I'm like, I'm helping him pack. I'm calling people. We're in the car. I'm
Sure.
picking him up. He's like, he had to cry to get up to his mom too. So it's just like, it's a different experience where it's like, now they're looking to me for like advice and most of it's just like, yeah, it sucks. And
It's truly like, oh, hey, fellow survivor,
yeah,
you're welcome to the ranks.
yeah, yep.
We're gonna get you water, we're gonna get you food, we're
Yeah,
gonna fucking make
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
you know, any sort of gesture that feels empty on our part, we're gonna offer anyway. Just like, hey,
yeah,
do you need someone to take care of the pets? Do you need like
yeah.
fucking yada
Mhm.
yada yada? People bring you food,
Yeah.
as it's like a fucking morning
Oh my
potluck.
God.
It was like, hey, you're fucking
There's so much food.
yeah, I know
But
you need a fucking casserole right now.
there's a bunch of because people don't know what to do and there's not much you can do.
There people don't know what to do at all because it's a thing that isn't really fucking discussed. And
Yeah.
it's I don't know. Did anyone at the funeral try to give you sort of like condolences and they just felt very empty or like something like I don't know. I remember my father's name was Kevin and my aunt made a point to tell me, she's like, hey, Kevin rhymes with heaven.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And my response was, good thing they didn't name him Purgatory. And
That's hilarious.
but like I'm just like, hey, thanks for fucking helping me put that together. I didn't realize that my dad's name rhymed with where I hope he went, like, but I'm sure she thought like this is gonna help move the ball as
Yeah.
far
She's like
as like
planning, like, this is what I'm
processing
gonna say.
for sure. And I don't resent her at all, but I was just like, yeah, his name does rhyme with heaven. uh
But it's spelled a little different. There's not an you're just like,
yeah,
why?
yeah.
That's it is bringing back to something that my then grandpa who lived to be 98.
I'm sorry,
He
who
said
lived it stalled for one
his
second.
oh sorry. Well, yeah. It brought back memories of something that my grandpa said. So my dad's dad, who lived to be 98 years old.
Okay,
Like,
wow.
yeah, so I think when you get that old, you just don't give a fuck about so many things.
Yes. Especially like race and conventions of normal polite society.
All of that. But so
I'm sorry, he must have outlived your father then.
yeah, he did. So he at the funeral, he went up to my brother and was just like, you get the gun now that I was gonna give your dad. You get that. And he just went on and on about this really great gun, which it's a great gun. He used it in World War II. He killed Nazis with it. So cool, it's a
Sure.
cool gun. But my brother's like, give a shit about the stupid gun. Like, I'm just like, what am I? But he was just, and
Yeah.
like, obviously he was sad, like, to lose his son, but it was a different sadness. It was just kind of like, he's
he was
ready.
probably holding on to that sentiment since 1945,
Yeah.
like since he got the plane back to America with his gun, being
Mhm.
like, war's over. Someday I'll bestow this upon my son. And I'm not even kidding. And then he was probably just like, this is a super sentimental fucking artifact from what I've been through.
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
like how, perhaps our parents weren't able to process everything, and their parents certainly weren't able to process anything. And then before that, if you had any feelings, you were just a witch, and people would be like, oh, this guy's crying, let's kill him.
That's hilarious. No, it's very true. Yeah,
uh
that is something I do like, the evolution in emotions. A lot.
absolutely. I think
A lot
it's
has
really
changed.
important that people um express the fact that being alive makes us have a lot of feelings, and they're not all easy to process, they're not all good. But yeah, I'm glad. It seems like you and your father had a really good relationship, or at least whether or not he was able to. Was he a person who said "I love you," or is he just a person who patted you on the head? And oh, I think I lost you for half a second there. We're back.
That was weird. It just like closed.
Yeah, I got your headshot again.
That was our dads talking to us.
Yeah, yeah. They're like, "Hey, wrap it up. This shit's getting a little self-indulgent."
Hilarious. That was my dad saying, "I love you." Um,
That was Joe Buck. Oh,
Joe Buck.
excuse me, Joe Rock, not Joe
Joe
Buck.
Buck's
Joe
trying
Buck's
to
the
do
other
that.
guy.
Joe Buck.
Joe Rock.
But yeah, no, I mean, my dad's, yeah, he said, "I love you." We said it all the time.
That's
And
good. That's really good. I had a really great relationship with my dad, and I think it was maybe forged in perhaps he didn't have the greatest relationship with his own parents. Oh,
yeah.
like he loved them to death, and he never would have said a bad word about them. I know that he didn't really get the emotional validation and he gave it to us in spades. Like,
Oh, I'm so glad.
no, it was good.
Oh, that's what, like, the hard part of losing someone awesome is that I think it hurts that much more. Like, if you have a great relationship with someone, that's what I tell Alex too, is like, that's why it hurts so bad, is because it's balancing out all the good stuff is now being balanced out with the pain. Because if they would have been
Sure.
a shitty dad, you wouldn't have hurt as much. Be a different.
Yeah, it's kind of like that's very true. I don't know what it's kind of like. I thought I had an analogy to liken it to. But like, yeah, I mean, you wouldn't experience the highs of life wouldn't feel so high if there weren't the lows that accompany it. And some people don't really know. Some
Mhm.
people don't experience the spectrum of
Yeah.
both of that.
Yeah. I wonder if there's anyone who's been able to live just like a perfectly happy, super duper life. Maybe they live to be like 70, but their parents live to be like 90 and they die before
Sure.
anyone else in their family, and they're healthy.
I am beside myself. How does the expression go? When I see people that are like, people our age that are like, oh, I love my nona, my grandma, or my Grammy, and I'm just like, how the fuck do you guys have grandparents still? And I don't mean to shame you if you do have grandparents still.
Oh, they're all dead.
Yeah, if you're a normal person. But I'm just like,
34.
when people are like, no, but I know people that are like in their 40s and they're like, I don't know what I would do without my Grammy, and I'm just like, the fuck out of here. I haven't had grandparents since 2009. I'm still
Wow.
uh and that's fine. I
Yeah.
know the last person I interviewed, all of his grandparents except for one had died before he was born. And I go, oh, well, that's a relationship that you don't have. And
Yeah.
maybe from your perspective, that's like, I don't know, if you and I didn't know like what a certain taste was, we wouldn't be
Yeah.
missing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
but
Yeah.
it is funny when I see people my age and they're just like, my grandmother turned. And also you and I will see people our age and they're like, my grandmother just turned 65. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? My mom's 70.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it's totally true. Because I have friends who had kids in their teens, or their parents did, and then their parents did too.
right.
So yeah.
Or people that are like, I smoke weed with my parents. I'm like, what are you talking about? My parents come from a fucking like like a novel that doesn't exist anymore. I don't know. My mom's from like fucking Charlotte's Web or something. She's from like a farm in Iowa where I don't know. It's just all right. We don't need to get too much into the psychoanalysis of where I come from.
No, it's great. It's good to find other comics who had good parents. It's or
It's
like
so
not good
funny.
parents, but
Yeah,
like
the last guy I interviewed, he's like, I think the one thing we all share is that our parents didn't get us. And I'm like, I have a really good relationship with my parents. They don't get my jokes. They don't get some of my references, and they certainly don't know why I talk about masturbation so much. I'm like, Ray, what you know? But it's not like they're like,
oh
I'm like,
no,
what are you
it's
talking
weird.
about? People are just like, I never even made eye contact with my dad. We shook hands once a year. I'm like, what? I saw my dad cry once a month. Like,
At your comedy shows.
yeah, exactly.
No, that's good. It's good. It's good to get to know people and get to know their stuff. Yeah.
I mean, we don't come from nowhere. I mean, a lot of people are like, fucked up childhood is why you make comedy. It's like, I think fucked up life is why comedy exists. I think comedy is a reaction to a society that doesn't necessarily make logical sense.
No, that's
And
why
I don't need to have divorced parents to have a perspective about that. I'm like,
nope. We made it out. I don't know. It's still weird. It's still weird to be comics, but it's just good to have different perspectives, I think. But yeah, we're rare. I think we're rare.
Yeah. I think there might be something equally damaging about parents that believe in you too much. Whereas people are just like, I know so many people that are like, I can't go home. My parents are voting for Trump. I'm like, I can't go home. My parents want me to fucking march in an anti-war rally with them, which I would, but they're wearing like weird like clown makeup. And, it's just a whole sort of like Trump is a clown thing. That's not what they did, but it is funny when people are just like, yeah, we're all damaged people, right? We're all from fucking broken homes. I'm like, man, I had nothing but support. What's my excuse?
Oh my gosh, yeah, we just got to pretend to be damn like yeah
my parents didn't get me. One time my dad signed up as Joe Rock at the same open mic.
Oh my God. No, I think I just channel because both my parents had kind of like similar you're saying with your dad and their relationship with his parents. They had rough childhoods. Both of them did pretty rough. So I think they both wanted to they were able to get out and then do good by them. And
it's so amazing that people can come through.
Yeah, I'm very surprised.
It's a real testament to their character.
Yeah, they're both fighters. Like they had to deal with a shit ton.
Well, that's good. Look at the results.
It's totally worth it.
Just you and me.
I mean, now they've raised kids who like might not even have kids. I don't know what your situation is, but it's like
I don't know if I want to have kids, but so let me ask you, maybe this is fucking tangential and not at all related to grief. Do you and Alex want to adopt if you can't have kids?
Yeah, that's what we're planning on.
You
But
guys would be
like,
great parents.
that's what I think. That's what it's so. It's like I think I could make I could make a good human. I think I
Sure.
can be. I think I'm adjusted. Like you know, I'm silly and I'm.
You'd be a great
supportive.
mother.
I think it'd be fun, but I know it'd be a ton of hard work, and I get that. But it's like, thank you, because it's like you know, I do want that. Feels like a way to give back is by creating a human who doesn't have to deal with, you know, just a terrible like experience growing up.
Sure.
Like,
And I don't necessarily even want to have kids, but I do like the idea that I could, I don't want to say mold, but I'd like to have a person to ask me questions about the world, and then I would sort of then have to like look internal and be like, yeah, I don't know. Why is that guy mad? Why do those people yell at, I
yeah.
think I'm not I have the advantage of being male, so I don't really have a biological hawk in as far as that goes.
Right. Yeah.
I like people and I like little people, which is what I call children, but I don't think I want to have kids. But I think I would be. I think I could.
I think you'd be a great dad.
Well,
100%.
I appreciate that.
Oh yeah.
I know when children talk to me, especially when I'm at work, because I'm in a capacity where I'm like have to, you can't like ignore children. I'm really good at being the shticky.
That's great.
Here's
I love it. Just being, yeah.
Well, you and Alex would be great parents. And we need more people that are bringing thinkers into the world.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. I'll text Alex separately. I'll be like, hey, bro.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I always felt this pressure to have kids or whatever. But what's nice about finding out that like I really can is like, oh, well, then I can adopt, and then I don't have to worry so much about the pressure of doing it right away. Like I can wait till I'm 40 or even 45 and adopt an older, like I can adopt,
sure,
a 5 or a 10-year-old or someone older. And get to be a parent. But at the same time, I don't know if I necessarily need that like in my life. Like,
absolutely.
I don't know if I will. Like I want to, but it's like, it's weird how it's like, I never even considered what life could be without having kids. And now that I'm getting to experience it, I'm like, it's pretty fucking great.
It's kind of nice. Yeah.
It's like money and freedom and not even that, like I have money, but just the fact that like right now I'm living with my parents, like we have been since the pandemic, and we've just been able to like save money and stuff like that. But the thought of like, if we had kids, like I was like, well, we honestly couldn't afford it. Like we just couldn't. Work, I guess.
Bills fucking pile up.
Yeah. So it's been nice. So it's like, we're actually planning on traveling once things kind of open up more. Like we want to go to Europe.
Nice.
And just be kids a little bit longer.
Yo, come to Italy, visit me. I've been spending some time there.
Really?
Yeah. My girlfriend's been stuck in Italy for the last year and a half.
No way.
I went to Italy like 3 times this year.
That's insane. Okay, so we can talk after, but yeah, we have plans to go to Italy. You should go at the same time. You can show
for real. It's not outside the realm of possibility that I will be in Italy and that I could like provide you guys with some housing.
Fuck yeah. That would be amazing. Hostel, yeah. Micah Walsh.
Yeah.
Well, sweet. It's like I want to keep talking to you, but I feel like we're wrapping up soon.
I don't know. It's been a real nice conversation. And I like that it's gone into different tangents. Now I'm like looking at my fucking notes. I'm like, how can I bring it back to tragedy? Not necessarily, but I'm just like, so what were my other bullet points?
I mean, I did have a question I was thinking of.
Please, by all means.
Like, I wonder what do you think like the purpose of grief is, like on a biological level? Like, why does it hurt so bad?
That's an interesting question.
Like, is it,
on a biological level?
yeah,
I don't know. It's
or even
kind
like
of,
survival?
I think it's almost as incomprehensible as the need for a sense of humor.
Mm,
Which is one of my favorite Calvin and Hobbes comic strips that I used to have framed, but it's just him and Hobbes walking through the woods, and Calvin's like, "Why do we? Don't you think it's weird that evolution would give us a sense of humor? Like, why do we glorify absurdity, and why is that what we react to?" And the last panel is Hobbes going, "I think if we couldn't react." If we couldn't react to things that don't make sense, we couldn't react to most of life.
that's
Um,
hilarious.
it's such good,
I
but
love Calvin Hobbes so much. They're reminding me how much I love them, and I want to go read them now.
yeah, that shit's very timeless. But I think I didn't really answer your question. Maybe I dodged it with that.
I mean,
I
comparing
don't
it,
know why. I think grief is
I mean, do you think it benefits?
I don't think we need grief. I think it's actually a reaction, kind of like hiccups or
Mm.
like gasping for air when you're underwater.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a conscious decision. I think it's more of a reaction, and you go, "Ugh, this happened to me." Now I sort of have to process it.
because it seems like it wouldn't help evolutionarily to like lose someone in your like.
Well, if we're thinking evolutionary, do you think that animals experience grief?
I mean, I mean, it does seem like they get confused and like if they lose something that they're used to having, like
Sure.
around them, like
I
if,
would say companionship, maybe dogs would like
yeah,
really lose their owner. But like, as far as if we're going to bring it back to the evolutionary, why would we have a sense of grief? It doesn't really, I don't know if it necessarily is beneficial to our survival
it
for us
doesn't.
to just be like, oh shit, now I have to cry every time I hear that song. uh,
Like, is it preventing us from, is it is it helping us maybe cherish life and then not want to die? But I think it would just make you want to die.
right.
Like,
I
is
don't
it,
know. Cause I think, I don't know. I guess and this is going to be more of a zoological, philosophical. I feel like humans are probably the only people that process guilt, or I think animals can process happiness, but it's more of in like broad strokes.
hmm,
I don't think I don't think other animals have anxiety necessarily. I don't think they have
good
grief.
question.
And I think it might just be a subset of like our evolution. It's like just as we are able to be like appreciative of music in the same way we can
Yeah.
feel deep sorrow, where I don't mean to discount animals, but
Yep.
like, I'm like, did Bambi actually really comprehend that Bambi's mother died, or were they just like, shit?
Yeah.
I
That's,
don't.
I mean, I feel like there's been research on, and from what I remember is that animals don't experience like shame or guilt or grief.
Sure. I wonder if all of this evolution is not necessarily progressive, you know? Like, I know for sure that whales don't have panic attacks. You know what I mean? They're just like, shit, I forgot that guy's name and I've known him for so long and I should know his name already. Maybe if I just say,
They're
hey,
just talking about it.
man, I hope his name's Matt and he'll think that I was saying, hey, Matt. But if I just, I think it's a uniquely human experience to be so
Yeah,
neurotic. Um,
I think so. We're so special. It's like,
hey,
I'd rather be a whale.
the chosen ones,
I know.
made in his image, and God is a man. Sorry, I had to get that in.
Thank
I,
you.
I had it written down that this is one thing I needed to say before the end of this. It
Oh,
says,
man.
don't misgender God.
He's trans. He's totally trans.
Hey, you know,
And he's a ghost. Or they're a ghost.
they them.
Hmm.
Um, Interesting.
Yes, I mean, we don't really have an answer. We haven't found an answer, but I mean, I just started thinking about it because I was just so mad at the fact that grief exists. And like, one thing I have realized is my one way of combating it, because like people, like my family members now are like, Alex and his family are like, does it get better? Or like how? And I'm like, it
Yeah.
honestly, it sort of does, but it's only because you forget. Like, and that's, at least for me,
What part do you forget?
I'm able to like not think about it. I think it protects me throughout my life. I
Sure.
mean, it comes back to me obviously, but like being able to, it's not constantly on my mind.
Sure.
It's not, but it is right away. Like the first few years, it's all you can think about. I
Sure.
mean, it's probably different for everybody else, but I think I'm able to, I'm able to just not think about it. I'm able to push it away. And I think because my memory of it has gone away, like it's faded, the pain has faded. That's what I think has protected me and helped me go on and like live a
Sure.
normal life, is that I have a bad memory. So,
I mean, it's pretty distinct what happened to you. And, I try to keep the memory of my father every day, but there's weeks where I don't think about him, weeks in a row. You know what I mean? I,
yeah.
I, when I do remember his life and his death, I try to be like, oh, I want to be more present. I want to be more
That's great.
mindful.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that my life still exists. I know that I have to go to work. I know that I have blah blah blah. Um, it's nice to be. It's nice to be. Try to be mindful of remembering the ancestors or whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is a certain point where like I have to fucking deal with the bullshit that is everyday life.
Yeah. No, it is. At least for me, it's like I've started to be less angry about it and more like, no, this has to happen. Like death is so common and so important that we place all this weird like pressure on us to like ignore it in general, that it's just like I've kind of come to, especially with like thinking almost dying myself, is where I'm just like not as scared about it. Like I'm not as mad at it. I'm like, no, I'm glad death exists because the alternative is living forever. And that to me sounds like hell.
I fucking feel the same way, and I've tried to
Yeah.
explain this to other people, and they don't necessarily.
No,
I think that
people.
as devastating as death is, I think that one of the most beautiful parts about life is that it has an end.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Like,
Yeah.
imagine your favorite song.
Yeah.
Imagine if, think of it now, and then imagine if it never ended. You'd be like, "What the fuck?" This.
Yeah.
uh, I don't
No,
think
if we couldn't die, I think it would turn into, it would be hell,
you ever
because
read that.
eventually
You ever read
the
that
earth.
book, Tuck Everlasting?
No, is
Oh,
that
that's like
it's about someone
required
who never
reading
died?
in the fiction of my, and we are from the same era. Uh, this was a fictional
I'm
book.
adding it to my.
I'm sorry. What now?
I'm adding it to my list.
Oh, yeah,
It's.
you should.
I'm glad it's not.
Tuck.
I'm glad you're making it clear it's fiction and not real, that someone lives forever.
Yeah, of course. Tuck Everlasting is about a boy who like can live forever. It's kind of in the same genre. Did you ever read Bridge to Terabithia?
No.
Oh God. I think I must have
So
read
good.
like I must have been in like the sad kids literature, because Bridge to Terabithia is like an amazing children's fiction, but it's about like someone who gets cancer and dies and
Oh my
blah blah
god, it's
blah.
so sad.
Um and now I'm already forgetting whatever else what I was
Like
trying to
everlasting.
reference. Tuck Everlasting. Oh yeah. Sorry. Thank you very much. You're the producer that I didn't know I needed. Um Tuck Everlasting is about a boy who lives forever and how monotonous it becomes when everyone that he thinks he knows and has a relationship with, they eventually die, and he lives for, ever. He just doesn't die. Conceptually, it's probably not as good as the book actually is, but fucking 7th grade Micah was just like, oh my God.
See, it probably stuck with you. You're like, fuck no, I want to die. Like, I don't want that.
Right. But I do think it is beautiful that it does have an ending. Just like anything else good has to end. I don't know anything that I appreciate that is eternal.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, the universe is gonna it's gonna end. That's why it's like, if we did live forever, eventually the sun would die out,
right?
And we would just be on this random planet where there's nothing.
Yeah.
And you're still alive. What would you even do?
And also imagine how bored everyone would be.
So bored.
We would just be like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, I'm not for it. And imagine, like, yeah, if you like, you can still feel pain. So it's like feeling pain, like just being frozen. And then that was what happened. You would freeze, the world would freeze. You'd be frozen, and you would be alive still, frozen and unable to move for eternity.
That's not how it would play out in my fantasy. In my fantasy, you would just live forever and people would die around you. You wouldn't be frozen, but
see, but you would. If you live forever, the sun would die out and you would be
trapped. Yeah. You're right. I'm sorry. You're going the long game with this. Yeah. So 4 billion years. If you live forever, yeah, the sun would die. And
people don't realize that when they say they want to live forever. I'm like, fuck no, that's hell. That's literal hell.
I mean, yeah.
Torture. It's literal torture.
It's kind of like, yeah, interesting. Like when I was a child and I was like questioning God, I was like, what happened? Who existed before God? And they're like, well, God's always existed. And I go, wasn't he? He must have been really bored. You know what I mean? For real. That was like my child brain just being like, but wasn't he bored by himself?
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, well, that's why he made the whole world in 7 days. I go, okay, no further questions. Well, that's all I need to hear. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything.
No. Yep. I don't understand it, but we're here, and that's fucking magic to me too. The fact that we exist is enough. I'm like, this is magic. Everything about life is like, this is all magic. Everything.
Yeah. I like that mentality. And
I mean, yeah.
For real. I mean, not to be too hippie philosophical, but we're just fucking we're gonna exist for a brief amount of time in the grand scheme of things. And if we can make each other laugh, or maybe each other think, or remember people that made, remember fucking Joe Rock. I think there's something worth celebrating in that.
Yeah, I think something made us, we're here for a reason. I think we're here to entertain and to create art. And I mean, whoever created this dude loved fucking war, just loved it. So like murder and killing, like they think that's the best. But I mean, yeah, there's all these movies about it and stuff. So whatever. But I'm like, I don't think it's about war, but it's also like death is such a, in the past, like such like a just, I don't know. It's like we didn't have time to think about it. Like I'm sure everyone did, but it was just, you just went off to war and knew you were gonna die and just go to war. Like it was just so different. Like, just like, I don't know. Parents lost kids all the time. Like they'd have 10 kids because they knew 5 of them would die. Like,
for sure. And that definitely still exists. It just doesn't exist where we live, That's
true. Yeah.
We're just like, damn.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh, life, world. I don't know. It's a lot, but we're here.
We're here. We're making the best of it.
Yeah, we're here. And I'll grieve you with this.
I'll grieve you with this. You think so? Not sad nauseum?
I'm liking I'll grieve you with this.
I really like I'll grieve you with this. I think it's a better like album title than it is it's a whole sentence, and there's not many podcasts that are a whole sentence, right? I don't know. I'm torn. I'm torn because I liked. Oh shit! A little delay. Am I here? Are you there?
Did I go away?
I'm here again.
Hello.
Yeah,
I'm here.
yeah. I'll agree with this. I really like, but I feel like Sad Nauseum is more marketable.
I mean, I'll Grieve with this will look really cool on t-shirts.
All right. Interesting. Well, hey, I haven't published any of these yet, so
True.
it's still up in the air. Sad Nauseum.
Sad Nauseum. Sad Nauseum.
I didn't want to include the word sad because I don't want people to think that it's a sad discussion. But I'll agree with this. I described that to my siblings, and they're like, I don't understand what that means. I go, like, I'll leave you with this. Like, you're closing the set, stand up. And they're like, yeah, we still don't understand what your world is, Micah. And I go, all right, well, I'm sorry to try to relate to you guys. And I said, how about Dad Nauseum? They said, that's too on the nose.
Oh, Dad Nauseum.
Dad knows you. That's good. I like how your brain works.
It's broken, but it works.
Hey, yeah, likewise. Takes one to know one. All right. Well, I think I've harvested enough trauma from your
Great. This was so fun. I mean, it's so weird to be like, this was so fun, but it was.
No, absolutely. I feel the same way. And this is the third conversation I've had, and I've come away from it being like, oh, this is really good for me. And then I go, what the fuck?
I think this will be good. I think listeners will really like. I don't know. I think people will really like it. Definitely.
Hey, it's something that's fucking universal, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. And it's like people who haven't experienced it will kind of get a glimpse into it beforehand, and people who have,
yes,
and they get like the oh yeah with that. So,
well. Andy, I really do appreciate you sharing your time with me.
Yeah, man, me too. This is great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good. And rest in peace to Joe Rock.
Thank you so much, and to your dad too. What was his name?
Kevin Walsh.
Oh yeah, rhymes with Evan.
Yeah. You could have guessed Devin. There's many other.
Kevin Walsh. Well,
yeah. Cool. That's great. Andy Erikson, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. I do too. Thanks for having me. Yeah. Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah. Goodbye, audience.
Bye.
Thanks. Take care, Andy. So that was episode 3. Thanks for listening, folks. And thanks especially to Andy Erikson for sharing her story. If you enjoyed this podcast, it costs you literally nothing to tell your friends, or to go on Apple Podcasts and write a review, or to rate it 5 stars, or to provide any other gesture that would give me a little bit of validation so I can try to fill this hole in my head that I've been trying to fill for years. And I'm not talking about my mouth. Don't be weird. Tune in next week. I had a really fun conversation with Ben Wasserman. I think you guys will enjoy. Follow us on Instagram at I'll Grieve You With This Podcast. That's about it. Do all the things. Be good to each other. See you next week. Goodbye.